Welcome to another episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. It's your favorite baby daddy, AJ. And today we're going to go into something a little different, right? So we've had a trend of having African American black dads on the show talking about their experiences growing up or how they parent and how they father. Well, today we're going to do something a little different, right? We're going to get a little roti. We're going to get a little high wine, and we're going to figure out what it's like growing up Guyanese. And to do that, I could think of nobody better than my friend for what 20 plus years.
Yeah,
My guy, Mr. LeRoi Robinson-Grant. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to see you again, man. We gotta get back up. It's been a long time. We don't have much time. Busy people. Life takes a toll.
It does. It does. I mean, we ain't got much time because these kids take take all the time.
Yeah.
So, and what's different is, and I don't even want to get all the way into it because I just by assumption, right? Just our generation as a parent is very active when it comes to not parent, father is much more active when it comes to being in the lives of our children. I want to go back to you and your childhood growing up. Like, what was it like? What was your dad's involvement in your childhood?
My dad's involvement was present. I can't say active, but present. A lot of my actual learning and upbringing and teaching me like little things that to navigate life was my uncles. It wasn't really my father. So that was kind of a stressful stressful situation because you want to go to your dad to ask questions. But as you know, my father was not the type to ask any questions of. You do not ask questions, you don't say anything, you are spoken. When he speaks to you, then you speak. And only pretty much that. So it was a lot more trial by error. So it caused a lot of issues because you want a father, every kid wants a father who's going to speak to them and teach them things and raise them pretty much and show them the ropes of life. Father was more so, you'll figure it out. So it that's when the whole, a village to raise a child actually comes in handy because it takes a lot of other men within your circumference to navigate life and teach you things. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes.
So, how is that though? So you said your dad is present, but not really there. When you say your uncles, so how are your uncles there? Because they're not present. They're not there on a day to day. Well, I'm assuming they're not there on a day to day basis the same way that your dad is there. So how this? From your understanding.
My uncles allowed me to talk. That's
Okay.
how they're present. So we would have
Okay.
conversations, and one of my uncles, rest in peace, he used to actually show me the world. He taught me about other countries like Africa and stuff like that. When he'd go on trips, he would bring stuff back, and he would always come over to visit, like every couple weeks. Come over, visit, have a conversation with me, talk to me about college, everything. I did not have those conversations with my father. Growing up Guyanese, that's one of the things you are accustomed to is your parents really aren't vocal. They don't really speak much. They don't really talk to you unless it's pretty much negative. You learn how to take a lot of criticism.
So let me ask you this: is when you say that about the way they were, is that both parents, or is that just more so your dad?
It was more so my father, but my mom at the same time. It's kind of difficult to explain. You're not really going to have a lot of conversations to where you're going to learn about navigating life. A lot of my conversation with mom was what was really, well, I don't know. You're gonna have to see because not growing up in the United States, that upbringing was completely different. So it's a whole different dynamic than being in the United States and trying to do things. Life was a lot easier for them, back home where they were in Guyana versus being in the United States. So those little intricacies of cultural dynamics they didn't really get because they didn't have to deal with it.
So do you think you being not just first generation, but you being the firstborn because you have two younger siblings as well. You being firstborn, do you feel as though that may have changed a little bit with them, or that's something that you see stuck the whole way through with them as well?
For the most part, it stuck to pretty much the whole way through. And it was one of those things where I tried to assist when I could to help them. because I had already been through the stuff and I knew that
Okay.
my parents weren't going to give them that kind of like guidance. So I tried to give them as much guidance as I could. I'm not that much older, so it wasn't there's not much I could give them, you know. I could do more of the protection portion of it. They weren't really big on keeping people away from harm. It was like, well, whatever happens, happens. So I had to be that barrier between, keeping them away from bad things and making sure they were on the straight and narrow and good and stuff like that.
Okay. So that's the protective roles, but I know your dad was the provider though as well. So with what type of lessons were there lessons that he actually taught to you about that, or that's something? Because I know you're a provider for your family as well, and is that something that you just they never talked to you about even now, or is it something that you just saw and innately like, okay, I picked this particular things up?
It's really more so saw. He didn't. My dad doesn't talk much. He's a man of few words. Uh, and if you get him to talk about anything, it will be more so like I can't really teach you, but you can learn for yourself. That's pretty much how he learned, how he did things. And you gotta remember too, coming from a Caribbean nation, a lot of Caribbean nations, their parents are very heavy-handed. So it's not like a lot of talking; it's more so physical. One of the things that they teach you very young is if you don't hear, you're gonna feel. So you learn to just try not to feel.
Yeah.
That's how you
Okay.
navigate life.
Okay. So let me ask you this: with it being, it's their first time over here, and I mean they weren't raised over here. They don't have, the same traditions and everything. Do you feel as though that they brought any of those traditions that they brought over and they instilled into you? Like, what Guyanese traditions did you feel as though, okay, this is the positive things that may have come from the traditions and everything which my father brought into my life?
One of the most important things I've learned is from Guyanese tradition is strict adherence to education. Education is key to everything. There is no such thing as, in as far as Guyana is concerned, there's no such thing as an ignorant Guyanese. Most people graduate high school by the time they're 16. So making sure you are highly educated is a very important aspect. And then when you're educated, you actually get to see everything else that goes on in the world. So that's what I guess my father really meant by, you'll learn on your own, because as long as you are educated enough, you'll be able to navigate the world. And with him not being from here, and he actually did go to Howard. He did go to Howard. He went to
I
Howard.
never knew that.
Yeah, he went to
I
Howard.
I never knew your dad went to Howard.
All my uncles went to Howard. Like when my family came over here, all of them went to Howard. All my uncles, it's about seven of there's 7 family members. This is brothers and sisters. They all went to Howard, and they are actually very big donors with Howard too. So that's a whole nother issue. But it's they all had the same kind of mentality. Is education is the most important thing. As far as Guyana is concerned, they really couldn't navigate and teach you pretty much a lot about America because they were just knew how to go to work and get an education. So that's the only way they could navigate through how America was working at the time. So that's all they could really show you as growing up is that, and make sure your family's taken care of, and at all costs, just make sure your family's taken care of.
So wait, so this leads to even more questions because your dad going to Howard leads to another thing that I wanted to ask you because I don't know if it's in Guyanese culture, but you hear about it in like Nigerian culture. You hear about it in Asian cultures. Hey, education is huge, but you got to go to school. You need to become a doctor. You need to become a lawyer. Like, was that what was pushed to you when as you were growing up, and your siblings as well, or how was it? Is it just, hey, just go to school?
It was to the point that graduating high school was not an accomplishment at all. It was not something that you like highlighted or were satisfied with. Graduating college and getting a degree was like a mandatory thing. And it was a little bit of the, doctor, but more so engineering. It's engineering because of math. Math is the highest form of education you can have as far as, Caribbean aspects is concerned. And math and doctors and like it wasn't really big push for like as far as lawyer, but you had to be like an extreme professional. You had to like get a master's type, kind of education.
And I know all of you, and no one's an engineer.
When you have very strict parents, it kind of pushes you different directions. Not even just because I want to be the best dad possible. I've actually been in therapy the last couple, like about a year. I've been in therapy for a year because of all the stuff I had to go through as a kid trying to navigate and like I said, the very heavy-handed lifestyle that my father had. So it's one of the things I really don't talk about a lot, but it's made me want to be a better father because I knew what it was like to have that kind of father, and that's not the kind I wanted to be.
And so, what type of father would you label yourself as now?
Man, I am pretty much like a TV dad. I am like
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm like Uncle Phil. I'm like Uncle Phil, and yeah, I'm like Uncle Phil and Carl Winslow. I am soft. I don't hit my son. It has to be an extreme condition for me to like lay my hands on my son or anything like that, just spank him or anything. But I'm like that. We're gonna have a little conversation. We're gonna have a talk. We're gonna have a sit down. I'm gonna go to all your stuff. I'm gonna be there front and center. Um, I'm gonna be cheering you on. It's pretty much a lot of the opposite of what I got.
Now, to that, right? While doing that, now that you're able to do these things, what does that make you feel towards your father? Does that make you feel like more resentment that he didn't do it, or because now that you're doing this stuff and you now understand exactly how much time all of these things take, right? And you're doing this with your son. It's just your son. You're doing it with your son, and then there's another little brother, and then a daughter behind, another little girl behind it. So from that aspect, have you been able to navigate, or has there been any grace from that standpoint?
Yeah, it's given me a better understanding of, his lifestyle because I understood even as a kid, he worked a whole lot. He worked for the federal government for almost 40 years and he would be there all the time if they had any kind of like pipeline main break at a federal government agency or they had any kind of snow removal or anything like that, he had to be at work. So he was there for like he'd be there for like days at a time. And I knew he was stressed a lot because of it. Being one of the higher ups in the department and being higher up in the federal government. So he really didn't have a lot of time to spend with us. So I kind of understand him in that aspect. And I can understand how those stresses can lead you to just want to relax a little bit, not want to have to go out and do everything. And I it's basically, I've come to little terms of understanding him as a person, an individual, because he is not me. He did the best job he could. He did the best job he could, and I understand that now he was doing the best he could at the time, because of how he was raised, he was doing the best he could with what he had available.
Well, I also want to stop the interview for a little bit and make sure that we're being clear that your father's not passed away,
Yeah,
because because the tense in which you kind of say it, like he did the best he could. Like, so there's still time for all of this to still be. I mean, granted, you might not be the most willing to accept or go along with it, but there's always potential for time for things to, still come to be. So I want to make sure that's clear too, because the way
yes, yeah.
it kind of sounded, it sounded like it's all past him, like he at McDonald's. I want to make sure
It
that's clear.
the hard part is, like I said, it's still trying to have. Tried many a times to have conversations with my father, but he is that brick wall. Trying to have a conversation is my mom is completely impossible. That's a whole nother situation as it is. But my dad is that brick wall. He's not going to really speak. He's not really going to say anything. If you talk to him, he'll just sit there and shrug his shoulders. So you kind of gotta take it for what it is. He is who he is, and I cannot change him. So I have to accept my father for the father he is.
Let me ask you another question. How is he as a grandfather?
As a grandfather, he's the father I wish I had. As a grandfather, he is the most caring, kind, loving man I've seen ever. He is
Mm,
100% about his grandson. He spends all his time, if we ever go to the house, it's him and Xavier by themselves, them two off, doing whatever, having fun together. So
yeah,
I enjoy that at least he's getting some quality time with his grandson, and Xavier loves his grandfather, so I'm happy about that.
yeah. It's weird how that. It's a lot of people that say at times that seems like grandparents love their grandkids more than they love their own kids. And it's like because the mistakes and things that they didn't have, or they don't have the pressures of actually having to raise you and make sure that everything is navigated, make sure the pressure of everything's okay. Now I can just love you for the individual that you are and not worry about making sure that I push you through the right way because that responsibility lays on somebody else. All I have to do is love you unconditionally.
Yeah,
That does happen a lot.
I think you're correct about that, is the not having the pressure.
Yeah.
I know my dad was always concerned about finances. You know, Even with as much as he was making at the time, he was still always concerned about finances. So that pressure of always making sure the roof over their head and lights are turned on, food is in the kitchen, able to get the kids to school, got clothing and stuff like that. That kind of pressure, I think, weighed on him a lot. And I know as a dad now, those things weigh on me also. I don't stress over them as much as I think he did, but I still stress a little bit, because you still got to make sure your kids are taken care of. You still got to make sure, they got everything they need in life. And so, but I think that not having that pressure and just being able to enjoy the time is what has benefited him.
And it's not, and I think it's weird because he did the pressure, and I felt this. And again, this is from an outside perspective because he did the pressure and he did above and beyond. Because if you ask me, like I'll be coming to your house, what I'm not a teenager. It's not like I'm 15, 16 no more. I'll be 22, 23 out of college. I'm eating food. I'm there 2, 3 days at a time if I want to be. Like nothing said, no like when you going home, like nothing like that. Like he just provided for whoever was there at the house. And so for me, as someone that didn't grow up in the house and also didn't grow up with a male in the house, you know, him being off and not like being communicative and all that other stuff is like, hey man, like y'all do your own shit. I gotta worry about whatever I gotta worry about to make sure y'all got it going on and keep going. But I can understand that as a child you will want more. And as a parent you should be able to find the time to give more. But I don't know his situation, what he actually could give or what he couldn't. So, but it's interesting. When you say he has the grandchild, that's why I figured he would be that way with your son.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you get into this complex where you want to overcorrect from what your life was. You're trying to I know for a fact I'm trying to do more than I the most I could possibly do. I'll put it that way. I'm trying to do the most I could possibly do. And even though I kind of go overboard sometimes because my wife, the school calls me a helicopter dad. You know, I'm always, whatever you need, like what's going on with my son, I'm trying to like you just gotta tell me, let me know, and I will make sure he's corrected or I'll make sure that I'm there, whatever you need, just let me know. So but
But like you said, the education, like you got that from your dad, and look what it's done for your son. Like your son, he's 6 years old, but he's like a mini genius.
yeah, yeah. It's I can understand too because my brother and sister, all of us are very intelligent, and it makes it a little bit difficult because you have this kind of intellect that is trying to fight you as an adult because they are smart enough to understand things. So they try to test their limits, how much they can push, how much they can do. Are they at that age yet so they can, do more and say more and get away with it? Because even my son at 6, he tries to talk like he's 16. And, you know, I get taken aback because I don't even know where you know these words from. I don't know where you got these words and where you got this vocabulary. And I'm trying to and I can't be mad at you for using these words because you're only 6 because you don't. But at the same time, if you were 16, I would probably punch you in your chest. but I can't do that because you're just 6. So I gotta refrain from that, and I gotta have more of a conversation with him about how he talks and how he's speaking to adults, and you know it does make it difficult.
I mean, because he's on pace to be at what, a middle school reading level by third grade. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's a, I mean, that education, that's something that I don't know if that naturally comes, like if that's just something naturally, or is that something that's instilled with, because intelligence is one thing, but to actually nurture that is another. And you have nurtured that in you. You've been nurturing that in yours. So I've seen it since he's been 2 years old, like picking out states and stuff like on maps, and like it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But where do you think that came from within you? Is it you were just that kid that wanted someone to do that with you, or was that something that was somewhat done with you just in a different type of way?
It was. I think it was done with me in a different type of way because my dad, he forced us to learn on our own. We didn't. We He was not going to help you. You would have to learn the information for yourself. And when you have to figure out everything for yourself, it pushes you to learn. It pushes you to understand everything, to try to get it as fast as possible because you're not going to get any help with it. You're going to have to, if it's math, you have to learn every single problem by yourself. You're going to have to figure it out. He's not going to help you figure it out. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. So it pushes you to get the answers correct because he didn't like wrong answers.
Well, you know what? And it's weird that you say that, but I will say, I don't know. Did he allow you to quit though?
No,
Because off of that, when you say that, you're like, well, you just got to figure it out on your own. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people just say, fuck it. To be honest, like if I don't know this, and you ain't helping me, I don't. Apparently, you don't care if I know it or not. I don't care either. So that is what it is, and it ain't got to be done. So
no, he was
was
not
that
going to let. That's one thing he would not allow is quitting. You might not know it, but you have to figure it out. There's no
okay?
option to not figure it out. So that's one thing I will say. He made sure that
Persistence and everything.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't like I said, education was a mandatory thing. It wasn't an option. So there is no quitting on it. There's no not I don't understand. It's you going to work on it until you do understand. And that kind of I guess independence that's pushed upon you, it allows you to navigate a lot of things and allows you to learn a lot easier because you have the independence. You don't have that kind of brace or that kind of bridge or that kind of thing to lean on. You have to lean on yourself.
I mean, yeah, but it helps build a strong individual. I mean, it's not the easiest way to. There's other ways to build strong individuals, of course.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you a question because at the education portion, and I've never asked you this. So, how did he feel when you decided to go to the military?
So that was the interesting thing because
When you joined the Marines, how was
yeah,
that?
I had tried to join the Marines right out of high school. Actually, even before I technically graduated, because in our state, Maryland, you're not allowed to technically graduate till you're 18 because you have to take the English class on your senior year or whatever.
You can't graduate what, high school?
You have to take English, yeah, on and senior year. You cannot take like 12th grade English before 12th grade.
Oh, I'm about to say you mean 18. I was like, I graduated at 17.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I was like, because of where my birthday was, I was 18. So I could not graduate early. I could not leave early. He would not sign the papers for me to leave early.
gotcha.
So I pretty much went to college and then, it was still something that was nagging me, even when I went to college. And then, the whole 9/11 happened. So it was like, it was a no brainer for me because now is my chance to actually do it and not be stopped. So I did what I always wanted to do. And I can't say he wasn't happy about it. I can tell you that much. He was not happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, you joined it after 9/11. Like, I mean, think about it now as a dad there. If you're something like, yeah, we're about to go to war. It's my time. Like that's a that's a little.
I'm a different kind of individual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it. But eventually, how did the conversation go when you informed them? Was it just, "Hey, I'm doing this, and that's it, and I'm hanging up the phone. I'm on my way to Trees basis camp." What is it?
I went to the house and I told them, and it wasn't a conversation. I don't even, if memory serves me, he didn't even look at me. My mom was upset. She was telling me why I did it and all those things, but my dad was like, "Well, if that's what you want, go then go." That was his words. If that's what you want, go then go. And then he didn't talk to me for a very long time. So, like I said, because education is like so prominent in their minds and the upbringing and the tradition of the Caribbean culture, doing something that is takes you away from every education is seen as like sacrilegious.
Mm.
That
Okay.
was an interesting time.
And so let me ask you one more thing. When it comes to now, you're having your own family and you're navigating through fatherhood. Are there any times where you feel as though you can, or you ever try to reach out to him and see, like, if I might be having a situation with my son, or was I like, do you ever reach back to, like, because we all have our perception of what our childhood really was like, but at the same time, we see it as kids, right? Because we
Yes.
might have seen, like, I remember we went to this place, it was the most amazing thing that, meanwhile, like, my kids might think Virginia Beach was the most amazing time they just had. I'm stressing out every time they in there. I'm in the sand. I can't do anything. Like, I'm losing my mind. I need a vacation after their vacation, but they loved it. But their perception is different from what the real reality was for the adults. Now that you have a child of your own, do you ever go back and do anything like that?
Yeah, I look back on it stuff. I've talked to him about him. The only thing I know for a fact is my father is very proud of himself because he beat, what was it, like we were all nationally ranked track athletes back when we were in high school, and he raced us in a 40 and he won. And that's one of his proudest moments. So he talks about that a lot. You know, he does look, I think, like I said, he was stressed out about a lot of things. I remember doing things and being at even soccer when I was playing soccer when I was younger. He would be in the car sleeping. And I know it's because now looking back on it as an adult, I was always mad that he was not paying attention, that he was not, more, into what I was doing as I was growing up. But looking back on it now as an adult, I can see that he was just tired. He had long days, he was 7 to 7 sometimes, or 7 to next day 7. So it's one of those things I've learned that he did the best he could, and he's still trying to do the best he can with his grandson, and stuff like that. I can only bridge as much of the gap as possible with talking with him because he doesn't really talk that much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just having the ability to be around him, I guess, has helped a lot. We're not as contentious as we used to be.
Trust me, I know.
And lifestyle is extremely difficult because when you are Caribbean, there is so much pressure put on you. It doesn't matter who you are. When you grow up in a Caribbean household, there's a lot of pressure on you to be something amazing. You can't be average. You can't have just a regular job. You can't just have a regular lifestyle. You have to be that successful attorney or successful doctor or successful, engineer or molecular biologist. You cannot, there's so much on pressure on you to be something great. So it caused a lot of stresses within the Caribbean lifestyle as a kids growing up in America from everybody I talked to, because when you're first generation, you're trying to navigate that old school lifestyle of back home in Guyana versus and trying to be an American at the same time. And the two don't really mesh together too well. So you have to try it. It really causes a lot of problems, but at the same time, when you grow up, you can see and appreciate they did with the best they could.
Well, how much of that culture do you give to your son?
I try to give as much as I can. It's hard because we're not really around a lot of Caribbean people anymore. Growing up, I had my cousins, I had my aunts and uncles, my parents. They talk with a heavy accent still to this day.
The little teeth stuck, yeah, the
Yes, like and all that. Yeah, Gibson and all that stuff. Yeah. And but at the same time, that's why I take my son over there on a regular basis as much as I can. Just so he can get some of that culture. He gets the food. My mom cooks, I make sure he eats some of the food. I try to give him as much as possible, because I don't want him to forget it. We do still plan on going back to Guyana at some point, taking a trip as a family so he can see what it was like for me growing up.
So when did you come?
I was born here. I was literally born here. And then as soon as I was old enough to travel, my parents sent me to Guyana. And I stayed there till I was about 7. So I didn't really see my parents. I still remember the first time I saw my dad. And I will never forget because I was freaked out because I didn't know who this guy was. And my uncle was, I had rode the plane with my uncle, and my dad met us at the airport. And my uncle told me, go with him, go over there to your father. I was like, I don't know him. I don't know this guy. You trying to tell me to go with this man? I don't know this man at all. Because I think my uncle had told me I probably had met him 3 times before that. My mom I had seen on a regular basis every once a year, a couple times a year she would come to visit, but my dad not. No.
And why did they send you?
Hmm?
Why did they send you over to Guyana?
I don't know. That's a very good question.
So I don't know if this is the case for you, but I do know I have heard of that happening for the children so they can get engulfed and embrace the culture, so they can understand it and know it a little bit as they grow up, and then they come back over because they're going to get Americanized and they get over here regardless. So you get ingrained and embedded in that culture, so you have it there within you and then there. Don't know if that's what the case was for that, but yeah, that's something you probably should ask. And that's a good thing. And like you said, we don't got much time. Your parents have all of their senses, which
Yes.
is
Yeah.
a blessing because you know, not that's not always the case for everybody.
Yeah. I do know that being my mom actually is Indian. A lot of Indian culture, is, the kids will stay with family over in India and whatnot, and then come over later on in life to America, once they get of age and things of that nature. So it's kind of same dynamic in Guyana too, in the Caribbean, is they do that a lot. Is they will have their kids stay there and in Guyana, and then when they're like 9, 8, 9, 10, they'll call for them, or like they say send for them, and they'll come to America and then be introduced into the American culture. And I think it is part of that. They don't want them to lose what they know about their culture and who they are. Don't get too Americanized. That's what they always tell us.
Yeah. So I mean, you should have that conversation. That's probably part of it, and that would probably explain a lot. Maybe that's why he stayed the way he stayed the entire time because he does not want you to become, I
Yeah,
guess, the way
like,
you became.
well, that, like I said, my parents still have a thick accent. So
Yeah, yeah,
as long as
yeah.
they've been over here, they still got thick accents.
So you don't want to. You don't need to. Listen, who's the old buddy name that came from Japan that could speak English all the time, just refused to in the interviews? Chiro. Like sometimes you ain't got if you ain't got to like, man, look, I ain't got to conform to what y'all want. I'm gonna be who I am and stay that way. I'm gonna stay that way. But I appreciate your time, man, and it's good to talk about the different cultures, the different dynamics, and way we all grow up, and it all helps the way we all stuff to parents. So I appreciate your time, man.
Nah, I appreciate you asking. It's good to tell everybody about how foreigners live in America. Because coming over is not the same. It's nowhere near the same. So it's a whole different dynamic to how you're going to live your life. It's not that kind of, we listen to like same kind of music or whatever. We don't, even the music is different. The music, the food, the dancing, the everything, that you whole way you live your life is kind of intermingled and blended within the American society. And then you still have to not get too much into the American society because they don't want you being corrupted.
Seems like a lot. All I got to do is my name being Elijah Wan. That's it. That's about it. All right, appreciate it, man.
No problem. No problem. Thank you for having me.
Episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. I know you liked what you saw. So what I need for you to do is go back and look at past episodes. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our YouTube page, Just My Baby Daddy Podcast. And you can follow us on all social media at Just My Baby Daddy Pod.